What's up, guys? Welcome back to this episode of the Road to Redemption podcast. I'm, as always, your host, Cam Williamson. And today I have a very special guest, Matt Newman. He wrote a book. He's a motivational speaker. You may have seen him on ESPN, on stages all across the country. Matt Newman, thank you so much for coming today. It's been difficult with the coronavirus and the holidays getting us scheduled, but we are here now, and I could not be more grateful. How are you, bud?
I'm doing great, Kim, and thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this. Between the communication we've had of going up and down like a roller coaster, it's something I was really excited for. So thank you for having me on today.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure. Look, Matt, I'm going to kick it off amazingly just because it's your story. Your story is amazing, and I could sit here and ramble about it all day long, but you are a motivational speaker. I'm going to pass it to you. Tell the people about yourself. Tell them where they can find you, first and foremost. So as they're listening, they can kind of start following you and doing all that. And then go ahead and give them the power hitters of your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website, it's Matthew, Matthew S. Newman, Newman. MatthewSNewman.com. I will point this out. The only person that calls me Matthew is my mother, but it's MatthewSNewman.com. On there, you're everything we're going to talk about, which I'm not going to say yet. You're going to see all the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, all the different handles. And there's also ways to communicate with us directly, which will make much more sense when we're done with this. So anything you want to look at, you'll be able to see on that website. But it's interesting, Cam, and I'll give you some perspective on this. We learn the greatest lessons in life at the deepest and darkest of times. We're given this new perspective on how we see things. We digest things differently when we take on life-altering challenges, and there's nothing we could do about it. We're put on a path that we have to figure out which way that path goes. And we all have this misconception in life that we're Teflon and we're bulletproof. We're young. We could take on any challenge until realness hits us. And when it does, there's two ways to take that. We could take in the new information, digest it, own it, and learn from it. Or we can be sedentary in old ways and have regret, resentment, and all these other things on our shoulders. For me personally, I graduated from the University of Delaware in 1996. I grew up right outside New York City in northern New Jersey. My father was a financial advisor. My mother was a school teacher. Two completely different occupations. But what happens is your parents and those you listen to when you're younger in life, they plant these seeds inside of you. There's seeds that don't make sense. You don't get it, but they will bloom at some point and you will look back in life and understand why they were put there. Something will initiate that to happen. So I got a lot of, thought process on teaching and financial planning, which when you're that age, you're like, whatever, like who cares about this stuff? And I remember sitting on the football field in this beautiful blue cap and gown, Maya Angelou giving her great commencement speech on the stage. And my mom and dad kind of walk down and my dad gives me that look and he's like, not bad, buddy, right? College graduate. I'm like, dude, the king has arrived. You got this, right, Dad? And he looks at me and goes, so what do you want to do now? Where do you think you want to go? I go, Dad, that's easy. I'm going to become a financial advisor. I'm going to join your practice. I don't know how you do with language on this, but my father's very thick Bronx accent.
Okay.
He looks right at me and goes, there's no fucking way you're joining my firm. Like, every picture of me at graduation's like, they're still hanging in my parents' house to this day. I'm 47 years old.
When I saw that part of your story, when I heard that for the first time of you telling that, dude, my heart sank because I related on so many levels. Obviously not that specific way, but I talk about it so much. In men's mental health, our relationship with our fathers is so crucial. In moments like that, there's, I forget what movie it was, but there's a famous saying, like, there's that moment, and then there's every moment before that and after that.
Yeah.
That moment is so crucial to who you become, man.
It is. And I remember it like it was yesterday, because as much as I was like, what a jerk, I don't believe this. What I also understood is he was giving me one of the greatest lessons in life.
Yeah.
There's no free lunch.
Right.
You got to go out and earn it. If it was the other way, then you're just handing everything over. So what I had to do is I had to become licensed from a financial advising perspective. So I took everything I had to do. But there's something called a wholesaler on the financial services side. What a wholesaler does is they will, again, have the same stuff that a financial advisor has, all licenses and all that, but they'll work for a company that manufactures a 401k, a mutual fund, an annuity, you can go down the list. And they'll go meet with advisors and they'll show them how they should use their products, why it makes sense for the client, best interest, all this other stuff. And that was a way for me to just go get licensed. So as angry as I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go do this. So I went down to become a wholesaler, and I moved to a beautiful town called Philadelphia. I mentioned, for those of you who like sports up there, I'm from Northern Jersey.
Yeah, I was about to.
I'm a big Giants fan. I was put in my place very quickly when I moved. I moved to this beautiful area called Old City, Philadelphia. Cobblestone streets, Betsy Ross knit the flag, the National Constitution Center and the Liberty Bell. Beautiful. It was an ambiance. It was infectious. It was young professionals, people in medical school, law school. I was the guy from North Jersey. I knew day one, this is where I want to be. This is amazing. I'm still in that area to this day. So as I moved down there, I will be honest with your crowd on here. I remember one day I'm walking down the street wearing a Giants jersey. Some guy screams like, "Go fuck yourself, asshole." And I'm looking around like, who's that guy talking to me? What the hell did I do? What did I do? Right? Yeah. And that was my understanding of, all right, so I guess the sports thing's not going to go over well. But every component of Philadelphia, I loved it, and I knew it immediately. And I started my career. And as I started the wholesaling aspect of it, I remember my father sitting down with me, and he said to me, he goes, "I want to give you 3 pieces of advice." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad." He goes, "Number 1, if you don't believe in the product, if you or a family member wouldn't own it, don't sell it. You lose the battle to win the war. It's about building the relationship off trust." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad." Straight up. He goes, "Number 2, always be honest. If you're not, over time, that's going to come out, and you're not going to be able to put your head on a pillow and sleep at night." I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Number 3, you got a soccer scholarship to college. Take that work ethic, combine it with those 2 other things right there. There's no ceiling on what you could do." And I started my career. And it was something I took to, and I would constantly be talking about what we do. The job of the financial advisor is to be there when things are bad, to give people good news at the deepest and darkest of times, to have a plan in place prior to the negative. We get so caught up in this minutia about financial planning is about investing. It actually has nothing to do with it. The majority of it is legal documentation, a will, a power of attorney that if you become incapacitated, the right person will be able to handle everything.
Make you money.
Life insurance. Now think about this for a second. People want life insurance when they can't get it. Yeah. They want long-term care when they can't get it. They want a financial plan when something bad happens. They go, "Oh no, what could I do now?" And I put a lot of blame on this, and I did a TED talk on this, on the US education system. Yeah. We don't do any education on this. We should teach students when they graduate and enter the real world. How do you pick your employee benefits at your first job? Basic stuff. Listen, go get a financial advisor for if you want to really do investing. Go get a doctor if you need someone to operate on you. But the basic type of stuff, we teach them to enter the real world, but we don't teach them anything which builds regret, resentment, negativity. I should have done this. I could have done that. It's just a lack of knowledge that's out there. Yeah. I was gifted. I grew up in this industry and then went into the industry. So I would constantly be talking, nobody plans to fail. They fail to have a plan. And my career took off. In 2002, I became the number 1 guy in my company. In 2003, I became one of the number 1 guys in the entire industry. And I remember my old man sitting down with me going, "Not bad, kid, right?" I'm like, "Not bad, right, Dad?" He goes, "I think we should talk about you joining my business." I go, "You can't afford me any longer, Dad. That ain't going to happen. I'm done."
That was my favorite part of the story.
And I found my craft. I found my way to utilize these seeds that have bloomed inside of me from my father, but transpose them in a different light. And I remember everything's going well. I'm single. I'm living in the city. I have all my friends. And in 2004, I met a girl that I really didn't want to meet. One of the people who works for me, their wife's like, "Oh, I got this great girl for you." I'm like, "Oh man, do I really have to do this? Like, I'm living the life. Everything's going great. Business is good." And the first time I met Rebecca, I knew she was going to be with me forever. I knew it. And you know why? Because I wasn't looking and I wasn't interested. And it was immediate. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're going to get engaged. And I started to hear all this negativity about in-laws and families. I'm a Jewish guy who grew up in Northern Jersey with, I said, Dad is an advisor, Mom is a teacher. My future wife at that point, Rebecca, she grew up in mining country, Pennsylvania. Her dad was a highway construction worker. Her mom was a janitor. She grew up in a small little row home. They're a Catholic family, 2 completely different areas. So you hear all this negativity. They're some of the most wonderful people I ever met. My father-in-law liked to hunt. He liked to fish. He liked to fix things. He liked to grow vegetables in our backyard. I did none of that. Wanted no parts of any of that. but we both like to watch baseball and we like to drink a beer. And I was absolutely determined to turn him into a Yankees fan from a Phillies fan. There was no doubt in my mind that that was going to happen. And I
How's it
got him
going?
there. I got him there.
Is
Well,
there?
he's not there anymore.
No.
We'll talk about that too. But I did get him to become a Yankees fan. And right before they actually closed the old Yankee Stadium, I brought him and my 7-month son strapped to my, ironically, I'm wearing this right here, to my chest. And we got to experience one of the last games at Yankee Stadium.
That's
together.
amazing.
Someone who loved it. It was just great. It's memories we think about all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Then we get married. And as we get married, right before we're about to get married, right as we get married, about 9 months later, our first child was to be expected. I will let all the listeners do the math on that one right there. And we were going to do what most people who live in the city do when they get pregnant and get married. Time to move to the suburbs.
Yeah,
Time to move out. So we moved to an area called Washington Crossing, Pennsylvania. It's right where Washington crossed the Delaware, this beautiful area, very rural country area of covered bridges, reenactments of war scenes. But you're 45 minutes from Manhattan, you're 30 minutes from Philly. It was perfect for us. We were going to build our dream house right there. Business was going great. And right before my first child was born, who was born in September of 2007, I remember my dad sitting down with me. He goes, about to have your first kid? I'm like, yeah, Dad. He goes, what do you preach every day? Our job is to be there when things are bad. Our job is to give people good news. To have a plan in place prior to the negative to alleviate regret and resentment. He goes, did you do everything you talked? I go, yeah. He goes, did you do your will yet? I go, well, Dad, I didn't get it. Did you do your power of attorney? No, I didn't get to. Did you do all your life insurance planning? He goes, Dad, I just ran the Broad Street run the other day. I just did a Tough Mudder. I'll get it. He goes, so you don't do everything you talk about. And it's not in my head. And over the next 2 weeks, I took care of all of it. Where I was taking on more responsibility. I was going to practice everything I preached. I was the shoemaker's kids who had shoes. There was an obligation to take care of a family that was expanding. Something that he almost poured kerosene on the fire, like, so you don't do it? And it was like, and I took care of it. Well, most of us don't realize you could do your will on LegalZoom for like $19. I mean, it's not about the amount of money you have. It's the preparation you're doing. Because if God forbid something bad happens to you, think of how you're defining your legacy. If you're remembered as the person, we got to move out of the house, my kids can't go to, like, basic type stuff. We have an obligation to do that for our families. This isn't about being in the finance industry. It's about being a parent. This is about being a responsible adult. So I did everything. And everything keeps moving forward. That September, I said my first son, Luke, was born. October 2009, February 2009, my second son, Jake, was born. My wife was pregnant with our third child. And I asked her, my best friend is the head of pediatric anesthesiology at Columbia Presbyterian. It was his 40th birthday. I said, Rebecca, I really want to go out and play golf with Rick. It's his birthday. And he's unbelievably close to our family. Reality is, if you want to go play golf with a friend and you have a pregnant wife and 2 kids under 2 years old, your crap will be waiting for you on the front lawn when you get home, because you will be told to get out. She looks at me and she goes, my parents are coming down. Go early, go play with Rick, and then let him come back and have lunch with all of us. I said, great. So me and Rick run out, we play golf right down the road. We come back, and my father-in-law, Larry, is sitting out at our mailbox, and he's kind of like fixing the mailbox. It's Larry, it's what he does. So I pull into the driveway, I'm like, hey, Larry, you losing weight, man? And he's really skinny to begin with. But he looks, he goes, I've had these stomach problems. I don't know what the hell's going on. He goes, I've been going to the doctor. I go, well, do me a favor. When you're done fixing the mailbox, there's some lights out in the garage. Go take care of that too. And I laugh, and I roll the window up to pull into the driveway. And Rick looks at me, who's an amazing doctor, and looks at me and goes, dude, there's a problem. The hell are you talking about? There, he's fixing the mailbox, man. He goes, he's got a jaundiced look to him, a yellow look. I'm telling you, there's an issue. I'm like, are you out of your mind? He's fine. What are you talking about? We go in. And he tells my wife, Rebecca, and my wife and my father-in-law are unbelievably close, like 2 peas in a pod. So she makes an appointment to go to the University of Pennsylvania Hospital just to make sure he can get checked out, because he's been going to a doctor and there's nothing really going on. That Father's Day, we got 2 kids now. My brother's got his first child. We celebrated our house. We're living in the moment, appreciating the now. You know, our families are all growing. We're all together. And I remember the phone rang, and Larry goes over and picks up a cell phone, and he put it down. And that was the moment at 60 years old, we were told he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. My first experience with cancer happened when I was about 15 years old. My grandma Harriet, was diagnosed with cancer. I wasn't old enough to get it or understand it or truly digest the reality of what was actually happening. But one day she was Grandma Harriet. The next day she was wearing a cancer turban. And the next day she was gone. What I do remember is the pain and angst of what it did to my mother. My mom never stopped crying. My mom spoke to my grandmother every single day on the phone. Every weekend we were at their house in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. They're at our house in Parsippany, New Jersey. And I watched my mom become a different person. And she couldn't stop crying. And I wish I got it more. I wish I could have been there to hug her. I'm 15. I didn't get it. But it built this hatred up in me for what this cancer didn't give a crap about us. It didn't care about what our plans are. It did what it wanted, when it wanted. And it just came in and it infected us all. Mm. What I do remember is when we went to bury my grandmother, and we get to the funeral home in Paramus, New Jersey. And my dad jumps out to find out where the plot's going to be. And I'm sitting in the car with my brother. My mom's crying in the front seat. And the song, The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel was on. And there's a line in that song, silence like a cancer grows. I don't know why I remember it, but every time I think of it, I think of my grandma. I think of what it did to our family and how it changed it forever going forward. My wife was very similar with my father-in-law, like I said. She's pregnant with our third child. We have 2 kids under 2. And she made it her full-time job to do whatever she needed to do to take care of him. She took him down to the University of Pennsylvania for his Whipple procedure. After that, he comes back to our house when he's able to. Every day, she's driving him back and forth, 45 minutes each way into traffic into Center City for chemo and radiation. She never bitched. She never complained. She did what she needed to do to be there for family when they needed the most. It was an honor to be a part of this. She was inspiring. She was taking care of her kids. She was taking care of me, and she was doing what she needed to do for her dad. What I saw from her dad was he was a warrior. He never complained in any way whatsoever and told me he had 2 goals. 1, he wanted to see all 3 of his grandkids born. Number 2 was he wanted them all to be old enough to have real life memories of him. I was the proudest son-in-law you could imagine. He just did what he needed to do to fight. And the reality is you have pancreatic cancer, you got one hell of a short shelf life. Yeah. You're not going to feel the ramifications of it until it spreads all over the place. And cancer is like a roller coaster. It goes up, it goes down. It doesn't care about your emotions, doesn't care what your plans are. It's going to do what it wants. And I remember it was February of 2013. And he's fighting. He's 2.5 years in. The average shelf life is like 6 months. And he's fighting to do whatever he needs to do. All 3 of my kids are born at that point. And I'm driving on a snowy, icy day in a town called Bridgewater, New Jersey. There's accidents all over the side of the road. And I'm like, man, I don't feel like dealing with this crap today. I'm doing 25 miles per hour. I pull up to a traffic light. My car hydroplanes right into the car in front of it, nails it, flips over into the median. I'm holding on to the steering wheel. The airbag pops. I'm thinking all that working out I do is for this moment right now. I get out of the car with a scratch on my body. Police come running over like, dude, you got to go to the hospital right now. I'm like, no, man, beast mode. I'm good. They're like, you got to go. So I call my wife. She's shopping at the King of Prussia Mall, taking a little break from Larry's chemotherapy because it's a roller coaster and it is going down right there. And what happens is I tell her. She goes, you got to go to the hospital. I'm like, no, I'm okay. She goes, you got to go to the hospital. Don't forget about our friend Karen. We have this friend named Karen Mancini. She's driving in a town called Bluebell, Pennsylvania. One day she's sitting at a traffic light and a car comes flying through and T-bones her. She's okay. But the police say, you should really go to the hospital just to make sure you're okay. 2 hours later, they walk in, they go, we want you to send flowers and a thank you note to the person that hit you. We just found a brain aneurysm. You would have been dead in the next 4 hours. Thought about my wife. Thought about my kids. Jumped in a tow truck to bring my car back, and like a type A personality with a suit on, I rented a car and went on my way. I come home that night and my head is killing me. I've never really had a headache that bad before. My wife suffers from something called chronic migraines. So she's always dealing with this like 4 or 5 days a week. So my father-in-law Larry's watching TV in the room, emaciated. I got 3 little kids running all over. It's not about me. It's about the family. And I'm just sitting there going, oh man, my head is freaking killing me. And she looks at me, she goes, you go to the hospital? I go, no. She goes, yeah, good for you. Try getting chronic migraines. That's on you now. Over the next 2 weeks, the pain got more and more severe every single day. 2 weeks into it, I lost all ability to sleep. The pain was so severe. I'd fall asleep on the couch watching TV with Larry at 8:30, wake up at 10, and just massive pain. I speak basically in financial services at that point, all over the place. I speak on big stages now. Speaking's easy, and it's a passion. It's a belief. You can see it in someone's eyes. You can know how much conviction they have. And I'm giving a speech in that same town of Bridgewater, New Jersey. And I go to make a point in front of maybe, 75, 100 people. I go to make a point, and as I do, I feel a hot flash hit me in the face. Now, when that hot flash hits me in the face, slur and gurgle poured out of my mouth. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what was going on, but I vividly remember seeing myself standing outside my body going, you're having a stroke. You're having a stroke right now. It felt like an eternity. It was 5 to 6 seconds. I kind of got myself together. I'm like, oh, listen, got a brutal sinus infection. Kids are sick too. Let's bounce back into this. Let's go. I don't think most people picked it up. I was scared out of my mind. Over the next, call it 3-4 weeks, I got 9 more of them. I got one way I was training for the Broad Street Run, running with my wife. I got one when I was driving. I got others where I was having regular conversations with people where they'd look at you and be like, dude, you all right? Like, what's going on? But it was so quick to them that it was like, oh, no, he's probably fine.
It was a stroke?
I'll get there in a second for you.
Okay, yeah.
I'll give you that. So what happens is, to make a long story short, on May 14th, 2013, I'm giving a speech in my hometown of Parsippany, New Jersey. I go to make a point, and for the 11th time, I feel a hot flash hit me in the face. I now know the deal. I turn my back on everybody to point to a PowerPoint so they can't see what's going to happen. That's the moment I decide I'm going to the hospital right now. This is ridiculous. So I finish the presentation, and about 30 hands go up, which means people are ingrained in what you're saying. They're listening. They want questions. They want to participate.
And you got to go.
Let me tell you what happened. Everybody remembers my head went like this. My head dropped. I answered one question. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm running late. I gotta leave. These are people I've known for years. Come, hey, Matt, I got a quick question. This is going through my mind. If you don't get away from me, someone's getting put on the floor right now. Cam, that is not me by any stretch of the imagination. Some people walk me out to my car. Matt, one more question. That was great. I peel out of the parking lot. That is not me. I call my doctor. I tell them what's going on. And I had gone there once or twice, and they kept telling me it was sinus infections. And I tell him what's going on. He goes, you got to get to the hospital right this second. So I call my wife, who's again in the King of Prussia Mall, where apparently putting their children through college at that mall right there with all the purchases. And so I tell her what's going on. And she's like, I'll meet you at Capitol Health in Hopewell. 90-minute drive. This is going through my head. All right, this is cool. They're going to figure this out. They're going to tell me the deal. We're going to be good. I don't know, maybe I'm going to die. I mean, this is just crazy what's going on. So I get there. We meet in the parking lot. We hold hands. We walk in. They said, we got to give you a CAT scan. I'm like, yeah, man, that's like an x-ray. That's cool. So they give me a CAT scan. They come in about 3 hours later and go, we know the deal. I'm like, yes, tell me, diagnose it, fix it. This is enough already, man. This has been brutal. They go, you have a lesion on the left frontal lobe of your brain. Now, to me, a lesion is a cut or a bruise. What we don't realize is when we're in an industry, we speak a vernacular that the average person doesn't understand. Mechanics speak a language that I don't get. Finance, we speak in English. So I'm thinking cut or bruise. Oh my God, I banged my head in that car accident. God, I probably don't remember it. They go, it's causing massive pain. I'm like, dude, you don't know the half of it. That's causing you not to sleep. I'm like, yeah. And they go, Mr. Newman, you're not having strokes. You're having seizures on the left frontal lobe of your brain, which is speech and memory. That's why I didn't tell you right there. Yeah. I wasn't upset. I'm like, that's it. I was actually like, oh, right. What do we got to do now? Where most people would think like you're scared. I wasn't. I was like, okay, we got to do an MRI, blah, blah, blah. So I go in and out of the MRI tube for hours. At 3 a.m, they say, Mr. Newman, we got to do one more. We got to do a contrast. We got to see some stuff. My wife says, listen, I'm going to go home. I got to get a ride for my dad for chemo as his roller coaster is going this way. And I'm going to make lunch for the kids. I now have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old. She goes, I'll be back in an hour. I go, take your time. I'm going to be in the tube for an hour. So the nurse walks in and goes, all right, Mr. Newman, hop in the wheelchair. One more, MRI with contrast. I'm like, no more wheelchair, man. I'm done. I'm like, I'll walk. She goes, you got a liability. So I get in the wheelchair. And they grab the clipboard. All right, Mr. Newman, MRI. We need to see how big your brain tumor is. I go, it's a lesion. And that was the moment at 39 I was diagnosed with brain cancer. My head just started spinning all over the place.
What year was that, Matt?
This was 2013.
2013.
And my head started spinning all over the place. I was in the tube for an hour and 20 minutes. They bring me back. They plug me into 30 different machines on this little bed. I just started to cry. I started to have retrospective on my life. Reality is you have brain cancer, you're going to die. And I started to think I must have done something. I think I'm a good dad. I think I'm a good husband. And I talked earlier about strength. Strength is not how big your arms are. Strength is not how much you bench press. Strength is something that's located deep down in that belly. And you can find it, grab it, and own it. I didn't know I had it in me. I saw it. I took it. It was mine. This is my journey. I own it. Cancer's just along for the ride. And I just started cursing my brains out. And the nurses come running in. They go, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine."
Good.
If that was my pity party, that's over.
Shit. Yeah.
I'm going down swinging.
Yeah. Fuck
I
this.
get asked all the time, "Were you scared after that?" No, not one second. I didn't know that. I don't know where, but I know this. Once I saw that thing that we all have down in there, it's not the amount that we're doing in the gym. It's something real. It's something pure. It's something we have access to. And I didn't know I had it. And the surgeon and my wife come walking in, and my wife's wiping her eyes. You got a dad with pancreatic cancer. You got a husband with brain cancer right now. You got 3 kids under 5 years old. And the surgeon looks at me and goes, "Let me tell you what you're going to do." I go, "Let me tell you what you're going to do. You get this shit out of my head and I'll take care of the rest." He goes, "Don't move." He goes, "Mr. Newman, you're going to get surgery on Friday. You're going to get a full craniotomy. We're going to cut a huge C right here. Pull your skull out, take your jaw out, take the tumor out. We won't know the severity of it for 10 days. But I want you to read this study on recovery. There's some diseases, they will take us physically, but they will never take us spiritually. And if we allow those diseases to define who we are, that's on our shoulders. We own that. We own our definition. We own the legacy that we leave to others. But there's some you have a chance to fight. And the number one thing you need if you're going to fight is attitude. And it talked about something called the downward spiral. We've all heard about the couple that's been married for 50 years. Wife's healthy as a horse. Husband comes down with cancer, he dies. We often hear 6 months later, the healthy one dies too. Once you fall into the regret, the resentment, the negativity, the odds of getting out of that are extremely low. All they did is pour kerosene on my fire. Now it's like, let's go, because I am fire. I ain't going anywhere. That Friday, I would get surgery. And I remember my wife looking at me going, trying to keep a straight face, going, "Our parents are on the way over. Our parents aren't coming. My parents are coming. Your dad, he's my cancer partner. He was there to show me how to act the entire way. He was there to show me how to have dignity, how to control yourself, how to have independence, and how to fight like a warrior." Everything was making sense. I stopped believing in irony at that given moment, right then and there. Things were happening for a reason. And I said to her, I go, "Do me a favor, hon, give me the iPad." She's like, "Yeah, they'll be here in 20 minutes. Do you want to watch a movie or something?" I go, "Just give me the iPad." That was the moment I needed I decided that I needed to make sure everything was in order. First thing I pulled up on the iPad, my will. Second thing, my power of attorney, my life insurance, my mortgages, my kids' college funds. And that was the moment I realized every speech I ever gave was actually about me. I just didn't know it at that point. And Larry comes walking in, my mother-in-law, Jackie. We didn't say a word to each other. We just nodded his head and I nodded my head. My parents come in. And my dad gives me that same look he gave me at Delaware. "How you doing, bud?" But I saw the fear. I saw the anger. I saw everything in the eyes, how upset him and my mom were. And my mom's holding back every bit of tears. And I go, "Dad, come here and sit on the bed with me." He goes, "Yeah." And I pulled out that iPad. I started showing him everything. And I finished going through and I took that iPad and I threw it on the bed. I go, "Dad, there's only one thing on my mind." He goes, "What's that?" I go, "Beating this disease. I don't got to worry about any of that shit. My wife's going to stay in the house. My kids are going to maintain their lifestyle. There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever. They will be grieving over me forever. But I am defining my legacy by allowing them to maintain the lifestyle that they have because I did the basics of everything I talk about. And you spin this any way you want." For the first time in my life, I saw my dad break down and cry. I was in beast mode, man. That wasn't happening for me.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and goes, "You're going to beat this." I go, "Oh, I know I'm going to beat it." And he goes, "These are the stories you're going to share. This is what you're going to tell people it's about doing. It's about having something in place so you could take on the battle." And that Friday, I got a full craniotomy. We hear a lot of correlation between the terms wealth and health. I believe they're completely correlated. I believe being in good shape helped me a lot. And let me explain what I mean by that. I got a full craniotomy that Friday. I went home on Sunday. And you look at that and go, being in good shape, it helped me pass the tests. It helped me not pay any more hospital bills. There's all this other stuff. They are so closely correlated. I remember they brought me down. And I wouldn't know the severity of the tumor for 10 days. They wheeled me down. My wife picks me up in the same car we dropped off 6 days earlier. I get in the car. We pull into my driveway. And we all hear home is where the heart is. And we have a side door in our house that I walk into. And I got 3 little kids holding signs going, I love you, Daddy. Thank you for coming home. And I just started to cry. But I didn't cry out of fear. And I didn't cry out of anger. I cried out of happiness. I was given a new set of lenses I was seeing life through. It wasn't about yesterday. It wasn't about tomorrow. It's about right now. It's about living in the moment. I had to go through this bag of shit to see how basic life functions are, that we're not all Teflon. We're not bulletproof, but it's about my kids. It's about right now. I went up to my bed. Home is where the heart is. I fell asleep for 13 hours in my bed. And what's interesting is I started to see life in this new capacity, and it was a gift. It was something I was never going to give back. I had to go through this horrible thing, and I still don't know how bad it's going to be. But on day 5, my son was having his 5-year-old picnic at school with dads. I have a second head. I am a train wreck, man. So my wife goes, you don't have to go to this. I go, I'll never miss it. Never. If I have to crawl in there, I'll go. This is about time with me and Luke. And I get it now. I see it. It's clear. So that morning she takes me and her 3 kids to Pennington Montessori School to drop them off. I'm just riding shotgun. I can't drive. I can't do anything. She takes my 2 boys, 5 and 3, to their classroom. I take my 2-year-old daughter, Lola, and I hold her little hand and I walk her to her class. And she takes her little pink jacket and she puts it on the hook. And she looks at me. She goes, I love you, Daddy. Thank you for taking me to class. I'm thinking, why don't I do this more? Because you know what happens when I do it? I'm wondering when my next appointment is going to be. Who do I have to call? Who do I have to contact and all that? And you know what I'm doing? I'm actually showing my daughter that it's okay not to make her important. Who the hell do I think I am? I had to go through cancer to understand that our kids are going to mimic the stuff that we do. And yeah, I think I'm a good dad and all this, but I'm better now. My phone was in the car that day. It was about Lola. And I can't take 10 minutes to walk a kid into class and focus on them. That's what I had to learn. And I come back and I'm just euphoric. I'm talking to Larry, my cancer partner, going, this is a gift. I'm seeing the gift in it. Wherever this is going to take me, it's never going to take out what I'm learning and the way I'm going to be going forward. And my wife looks at me. She goes, you don't have to go to this lunch. I go, I'll never miss this. So she takes me at 12 o'clock. My 5-year-old Luke's waiting at the front door, gives me a hug. He goes, I love you, Daddy. Thank you for coming. And we walk in the backyard. I'm rainbows and unicorns. I can't believe I'm there. He's got his little lunch with him. We sit down next to each other so we can spend our 30 minutes together. And I take a look up and I see every dad sitting next to their kid like this. And I went, oh my God, that was me. I had a BlackBerry and an iPhone at that point. I had no anger, no animosity. I got it though.
Understood, yeah.
It's understood. I get it. Like you had to go through this to realize for 30 minutes, everything else could wait right now. Yep. And I get home and I'm talking to Larry about how happy I am and how I see this. I'll never change. And as we're talking, his phone rang. And that was actually University of Pennsylvania Hospital telling him to get off the chemotherapy because there was no point any longer. Chemo didn't care about us. I mean, excuse me, nobody cared. Cancer didn't care about us. Didn't care about the relationship. It does what it wants when it wants. And we were like a scale. As I would get better, he would go this way. I had to go through chemo. I had to go through radiation.
Oh, you were saying he's off the chemo because he was losing the battle. Oh, I thought he was winning the battle. Oh, okay. Understood.
And it didn't care. And I went through chemo as well too. We're both in the same house going through chemo and radiation together. And it was what it was. We appreciated every moment together that we would have. And like I said, we were scale. As I got better, he would get worse. But what's interesting is I started to write. And I would start to send these email messages out on my perspective, my understanding of life, this gift that I was given. And I found it cleansing. And it was almost like vomit. I would write, get it out of me. I was like, okay. I never read one after I sent it. I would send it to friends and family and stuff like that. Unfortunately, a year and so later, Larry would pass on. He needed to go. He was 70 pounds. He was emaciated. He couldn't talk. He couldn't do anything. And I remember saying to him, driving out to mining country, looking at him going, I got this. You taught me how to act. He passed 2 hours later. He was waiting for his cancer partner to be there. He was waiting to hand it off. And I wasn't upset because he's never going to leave us. He just didn't need to be like that any longer.
Yeah.
But every time something would happen to me, I would write. I would have to go for a cancer test every 3 months. I had a grade 3 astrocytoma. That's an aggressive tumor. Most likely, Matt, it's going to grow back in the same spot. So every 3 months, you're going to go for MRIs and MRAs. And what I would do is when I would deal with this, I would write. I'd be like, oh, let me write something down. That became my catharsis. You push all this negativity and angst deep down in our bellies. We all do. If it doesn't find an outlet, it's going to combust at some point. It's going to blow you up. And all of a sudden I was writing. Let's go back to the beginning of our conversation. I talked about seeds get planted. I told you my mom was a teacher. All of a sudden the writing came out. I never did it before. And I would send it out to people. And every day I would get this. Hey, Matt, could you put this person on? Could you put that person on, this person on? I never really thought about it. But I realized cancer was like buying a car. You buy a car, you leave the lot, you go, look at that. I see the car everywhere. Wrong. It was always there. You just never noticed it. So you had a direct connection with it. That was cancer. I started to see it affected everybody. And now it went even further. Disease, depression. We all have this fake look of rainbows and unicorns and how Teflon we are. We all got our demons. We all got our problems. We all have our family issues. And you know what we don't want? We don't want some dude giving us a bunch of shtick crap that we don't care about, reading statistics. We want to connect with people who are on the similar path. They're on a journey. We're in this together. Life is not all perfection, and it's all about fighting. So I started to write and write. And 4 years into it, I had 20,000 people on my email chain. I didn't think about it. I just put them on there. So I decided I was going to write a book. You know, I was going to write a book for me. I needed to keep doing this to keep myself where I'm at. So I write this book by myself. No ghostwriter, no nothing, no marketing. I just did it for myself. So on March 23rd, 2018, it comes out. It's called Starting at the Finish Line. I call my mom. I go, hey, Mom, the book's coming out today. And I'm going to tell you exactly what she said to me on that call. You know, no one's ever going to read it, right? I go, God, I'm some jerk off. What are they going to read my thing for? She goes, but what'll happen is you'll put 3 copies in your safe. And when your kids are old enough, they'll be able to read the reality of what happened. What I'm not including here, which you guys will see if you read it or whatnot, there's helicopter crashes, there's stuff you would not believe in a million years. So I'm like, Mom, I couldn't agree with you more. 1 week later, we were #1 on Amazon in 4 different categories, and my jaw hit the ground. There was no expectation. I did this for me. There was no marketing need. There was no nothing. I just did it myself because it made me feel better. And what I started to understand was what rawness and realness really is. That's what people are looking for. They're looking for honesty and integrity. They're looking for not some canned, ghost writer puts this in chat. They want to know that I'm not alone, man. I got my problems as well too. And I need inspiration. I need motivation. And that comes from honesty and realness that happens. So what happens is, all of a sudden, I told you I speak in the financial services. I get a call from ESPN in New York, and they're like, we want to have you on. I thought it was my brother Crank calling. I have no problem telling you that. I'm like, yeah, right, you want me on there. So I did that. And then I started getting asked to speak on it. So it's like a band. You start in this great little bar and, there's 25 people. And you're like, this is so cool. I speak on these big stages of finance. This lets me share. It lets me know you're not alone. Let me give you some information on this. And then a year later, you're speaking in front of 15,000 people on main stages. And you're going, this is unbelievable. Yeah. And what you started to realize, what people are really looking for is to be hit in the heartstrings, to be able to connect with them on a level. And I would go to these events and I'd be signing books for 4 or 5 hours after, because nobody comes by to sign a book. It's, I want to tell you about what my family's dealt with. I want to tell you this. And with great power comes great responsibility. And I would always listen to everybody. And I started getting messages on social media from people all over the world. One point I didn't bring up. I was never on social media before this. I wanted nothing to do with it. When the book came out, though, I was like, I guess I should go on that. That way my friends that I haven't seen can, maybe see something like that.
Sure.
And for all the negativity in the underbelly of social media, I think it's amazing.
It's great.
I think it's amazing. If you choose to go down those avenues, that's on your shoulders.
Right.
But to be able to connect, how else would we have connected? Other people that I've done stuff for, and big speeches that I've given of people who've read something, and you realize that what it allows you to do is find something that connects with you on a deeper level if you use it for the right reasons. And things started to change. And they started to have this new understanding that what support is, and there's no monetary value to someone shooting you a note going, thank you, I saw you speak, I read your book, I want you to let you know it helped me through a difficult time. So that meant more to me than anyone could imagine. And I get all the time, Matt, you stop believing in irony. Yeah. So you think this happened for a reason? I go, I do. So you're happy it happened. No, what are you, out of your mind?
Yeah.
I'll deal with this the rest of my life. I go for tests every 6 months. This is never going to end. but I could allow cancer to be the thing that's the main focus of my life, or cancer is just along with me. And I'm going to utilize what it instilled in me to be better going forward. And that's a gift that I will never give back.
Dude, your story is unreal. And I mean, I cannot wait for everyone at home to hear and to go and follow you. Now, just for the people, you said you're going every 6 months right now. What is your status with everything, just so the listeners know?
Yeah, so I always get the same thing. It will most likely grow in the same spot when and if it comes back. And it's a grade 3 astrocytoma. It's more aggressive than they anticipated. I always get I don't know what you're doing, man, but just keep doing it. There's nothing there. And this is going to sound odd. I don't think about my testing till the day I go. The night before, I don't think about it. I've figured out some way to compartmentalize. I don't know how, that I own every moment of my life. And if I allow that to take it over, it's actually cancer's life that I'm just a part of. And that's the truth. I don't know how that happened.
And I'm so happy that that's a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk to you about after the listeners got to hear your story. Is you said a few things, and there's a few things throughout your message that I really connect with, which is being in the now. And you said something in the middle of telling, the cancer part of your story, where you said, if you let these things sit inside you stagnant, and you were talking about when you started writing, you said, if you let them sit in you, these fears, these worries, these frustrations, and they just sit, there's a lot of people, and there's actually a lot of science to believe now that that's actually can cause physical illness.
There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt.
Yeah. To not get these traumas out, it actually there are studies, and I guess you would call them theories because they're not facts at this point, but that are showing that what you are doing is the perfect thing by saying, this is my life. I have to go on this day to do that, but that day is not today. So I don't worry about that today. You don't open yourself up for negative thoughts that turn into negative energy sitting stagnant inside your body. Right. How much do you believe that? And because you've lived the journey. I mean, you are the living proof of that.
It's funny. I think things happen for a reason, like I mentioned. Learning how to utilize a catharsis to alleviate things that need to get out didn't make sense to me till I actually did it. I didn't go in with a plan of here's what I'm going to do. I'd be writing these messages, and I was writing these emails at the beginning all the time. And I had people go, man, that email, I gave it to 5 people. You hit me in the heartstrings. And then when I would literally say, I didn't read it. What do you mean? Once I got it out, I had this new feeling like I'd hit send and be like,
I'm good. Yeah.
I feel better.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine. I go, you really don't read them? I go, I have a file with all of them. I can tell you that. To this day, I still haven't read them. Because what I learned was when you get it out, what I was trying to do is make myself feel better. And it was working. And then I get a lot of, Matt, why don't you write the emails anymore? Well, I get that now from speaking and doing interviews and all this, and I write for Thrive Global. I write for other things. And you find these different anxiety ways that if you could handle the anxiety that comes with it, and people go, oh, no, I'm tough. I don't do that. We all got it. There's all something in some fashion.
Right.
And all of a sudden I started to get connected with people who were dealing with depression. People almost went through suicide, all this other stuff. And you realize it's not really about cancer. It's about, I want to be able to connect with someone who's also had a tough go of things, because that will be my cleansing. And what I learned, for anybody listening, is my catharsis was to get it all out of me, share it with anybody. I didn't care who was going to read it. I don't care. I am an open book. I got none to hide.
Yeah.
And I found the majority of people is they only want to talk about it with 1 or 2 people. And there is no right or wrong. It's finding what's right for you right there. And I've met with people, talked to people all over the world where their spouse doesn't even know some of the story. And where I used to, before I went through Israel, that's weird, makes total sense to me now. Yeah. Total sense that whatever you're going to find to get that out of you, that works.
Yeah.
That right there. And I'll tell you another thing too that helped me a lot: fitness, no question.
Absolutely.
That was always a big thing for me, working out to alleviate all type of stuff. But what I found too was I couldn't wait to get back in the gym, because coupling that with writing, it was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to alleviate the stress, to alleviate that.
I see the guitar behind you. Is that you? Is that your creative outlet? Is that another way for you to burn it off?
I'll share a good story with you.
Please.
So I'm 13 years old, growing up in Northern Jersey. and I really wanted to play guitar really badly. I was absolutely awful. So I go to this place called Village Music on Route 46 to take lessons, and I stink. But what happened is I was a pretty good baseball player and soccer player, and sports started to boom for me, and things started to go really well. You don't have time to play guitar anymore. You're just playing sports all the time, which is cool. I liked it. It was fun. I loved every second of it. Then I go to college, playing I didn't care about. I moved to Philadelphia, and for some reason I brought an old guitar that I hadn't played in ages. And I meet this one guy who plays guitar. So we start playing a little bit. And I'm like, this is so cool. And I stink. I'm terrible, right? What happens is my career booms. See you, guitar. Nice talking to you.
Sure.
So I come home from surgery and I'm walking around my house. I can't go anyplace. I'm a train wreck. Train wreck. Pictures are just awful. And I go into our basement, into our storage room, and I see an old guitar sitting there. I didn't even know we had it here. So my son's teacher, the one that I went to the 5-year-old Father's Day picnic for, owns a music studio. And the guy's amazing, amazing. So I email him, I go, hey, I don't even know how to fix a guitar. I know nothing about it. Can you fix it if I have Luke bring it to school? Now he knows the story. He's like, absolutely, man. You tell him to do that. And his name's Arun. So Luke comes home a couple of weeks later, with the guitar, it's all fixed up, and I start playing, and my wife's like, close your door. This is just absolutely horrendous. And I never had the internet, by the way, when I played guitar.
Yeah.
Like I used to have to go buy the tabulature books and stuff like that. So, right? I mean, there was none of that. So all of a sudden now I'm like, oh, look how cool this is. And I start playing. My wife reads a study on how cathartic music can be. And I start playing. I'm playing more. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I don't think I'm that bad. And she buys me a Fender Stratocaster. And I probably play every night for 15, 20, 30 minutes. I could hold the chord. It's another release. You have to find these things. But it makes me realize, so this is why I wanted to play guitar at 13 years old. Because now I could sit in my office and during difficult times or tests, I have writing, I have speaking. I have that right there. And it's something I'm so grateful that I was able to revisit after such a long period of time. But it's one of those stories where there's no way that's irony. There's just no way.
Well, and here's another way that there's no way that any of this is irony. So the listeners have now have heard your story, so I don't feel bad for sharing this part and how I really connect with you, right? So my listeners know, because I talk about it nonstop all the time. Two of my top 3 biggest fears of my life are that I would have a seizure and that I will at some point get cancer. Your story about your grandmother is where that starts for me. My grandmother got cancer at 14, and I watched what it did to my family and how my father fell apart. And I didn't have a good relationship with my father, but it was mainly because he was a very type A type man. He felt like that's what he needed to be for me because I lived with my mother all the time. So to watch my father, my masculine, example, I guess, of what a man should be, break down over this, I kind of felt that at some point it was inevitable for me. And I live with that fear. And that's why I started like the Shatter It movement through my deployments and through stuff like that. My fear, my hypochondria and things grow. And that really is the basis of like my movement, is to show people that with these fears, for me, I have mental illnesses that tell me that I'm sick all the time. Even if a doctor tells me a million times that I'm fine, it tells me that I'm sick all the time. And I'm battling it in that way to go, if you don't get a handle on this, I believe you can create things like that on yourself. So I connect to your story so much as somebody who's dealing with the battle that I fear so much, and to see your strength in it is like, it's literally life-changing. So I want to thank you for that. And then the part with the guitar playing, I got to a really low place like a month ago. And I had just convinced myself I'm no good. Nobody cares about the message that I'm putting out. I'm destined to get sick and die early. That's just the way my life goes. And I fell into a really dark depression for like a month. And I woke up one day and I said, you know what? I have to retrace back to when I was happiest in my life. And how can I find a way to get back there? And through that, I created the journal challenge that I put out. But that same morning, I bought a skateboard again. Dude, I'm almost
Nice.
30. And I was like, I haven't skateboarded in easily 10 years. I mean, easily 10 years. But I have this feeling like when I grab the board again, I'll have that euphoria of when I was a
Oh yeah.
teenager of just strolled in the streets when I didn't worry about everything. And every appointment that's scheduled doesn't give me anxiety and cause me to doubt myself and cause more fear. And just like your guitar, it's getting back to that place of being in the now
Yep.
without the fear, without the internal battles, and just going, this is life. And
That's
it's
right.
beautiful. You know, when you sat on your bedside table in the hospital and had that inner battle with yourself, mine was in a jail cell. You know, I wasn't facing cancer, but I was facing 7 to 10 years in prison.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I had this experience where I choose to call it God, but where this feeling came over me that goes, dude, if you choose to get control of your life and how this thing's going to play out, I'll get you out of here. But like, you have to make a choice that this life is not something to be wasted.
That's
It's
right.
not something to be kind of coasted through, like you were talking about with fathers on their
Mhm.
phones with their kids. I'm public enemy number one on that one, man. When I
No, I was
see,
too, by the way. I'm telling you, I was.
well, and I'm now like, it's a thing for me where I am a stickler on it. When I see parents on the phone not spending time with their kids, if I'm close enough with them, I call them out and go, "Hey, man, what are you doing? Like, you know better than anyone. They're gonna grow up insanely fast. You're never going to get that moment back when
That's right.
that notification that you think you're going to get telling you that you just won $1 million or your book sold 80,000 copies or whatever. That's that notification that's never coming, you know, be present in that moment. And I find that when you're present in that moment, like you teach all your people, life is so much better and it's so much more
Oh yeah.
freeing and you are physically healthier. You talk about it a lot and I connected to that. Kevin Hart also has that same testimony. When he had his car accident, he said if he was not in the physical fitness that he was in, he doesn't
Yeah.
think he would still be around right now. So man, I just have to applaud you, man. Your story is
Oh,
unreal, unreal. It's amazing. I love it so much, and I'm gonna grab a copy of the book. I have to have it. I'm gonna put it behind me in a bunch of my stuff. Dude, I can't thank you enough for coming. Please tell people again, where can they find you and where can they find the book?
absolutely. So you can find, so it's Matthew, Mathew, S. Newman, NEWMAN.com, MatthewSNewman.com. And the reason I use the website is you have all our handles on there.
Yeah.
You have direct contact with us where you can email us. You have all the TED Talks on there that we've done. You have speeches, you have ESPN, you have all the interviews and stuff that we've done in there. So you could access anything you'd like on there. The book you could buy on Amazon, Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble, Goodreads. Amazon's always the easiest one, especially,
Yes.
you know, if you're under Prime.
Do you have it on
But
the Audible?
we don't. It's funny. I get asked that all the time.
I'm an Audible addict. I'm an Audible
Yeah,
addict.
I need to do it because I get it. And the book will be 3 years old in March, and I still get 1 to 2 emails a week, or messages, I should say, a week doing that. So it's something we're probably going to do, but it's an easy way to contact us. And if there's any way we can help at all, please
Yes.
don't be bashful by any
Sure.
stretch.
What is there something in the works? What's coming up? What's all you got a tour now with coronavirus? It's hard to do the
All
speaking.
virtual now, all virtual. So
Yeah.
I speak all the time, but I speak right in the chair that I'm speaking in right now. You know, you miss the fact that you can't make, you can't really truly feel the emotion. You can't make that direct connection with people,
Yeah.
but you can also take advantage of what's there, and it's ways that we can connect. And we might not see in person now, but then I'll get a message later, or hey, this, or can, you know, I have someone who just went through this. Guy said, could you get a book for me? I'd really like you to send something with a note to someone to inspire them.
That's perfect.
And you start to just alter. You know, I always get the old, you know, I can't wait to go back to old ways. There are no old ways. Life is a constantly revolving evolution.
Yeah.
It's about taking old things and incorporating them in the new. So
Yeah.
anyone wants to go back to old ways, you might as well get a telegraph and give your cell phone away, because that's never going to work any longer.
Well,
It's
and I
about
keep
going forward.
Yeah, I keep asking people like, what day do you think you're going to walk into? For me, it's Kroger here in my local thing. I don't know if you guys have
Yeah,
Kroger's there.
I
But
know Kroger. No, we
okay.
don't, but I know it.
You know, when you're going to walk into Kroger's and then when people aren't wearing masks again, then you're going to walk around and go, oh, that's weird.
That's right.
It's going to be weird now when we have to go back, because that will be the new normal. Like, we're in the new normal. What we
I
do
agree.
now will be to adapt and grow from what our new normal is right now. That's,
Totally
like we
agree with you.
said, living in the now. People want to live in the past all the time and talk about, well, let's go back to there. If we go back there, we have to deal with all the problems we have there. Let's just deal with now and move forward, I think.
I completely agree. And I think one of the things we're all going to take in is that if we're able to maintain adapting to change, and I'll give you this line, I kind of use a lot. Change breeds two things: change breeds complacency, or change breeds opportunity.
Mm.
Many of us that want to go back to our comfort zones, there's no upside on that. It's leaving that comfort zone and looking at change as an opportunity and taking it on. That's what will truly allow us to really move forward with everything that we're doing. And it shouldn't take a pandemic for us to be able to really accept newness. And I think going forward, it's teaching people a lesson, but I hope they keep it as a lesson instead of
Yeah.
resorting back to the old ways.
That's my fear, is that as we start to slide back into normalcy, or back into the way things were before this pandemic, you're going to see the people that learn the lessons, like keep your phone away when your kids around, and
That's right.
when you have time with people that you may not typically get time with, be present in that time and understand that that moment is so precious, because when you separate, you may never get that again, and that's very real for all of us. So, like, again, man, I'm so grateful for our time together, and
Thank you so much.
I hope that we get to do this again really, really soon. Even if we
Love
make
it.
this a monthly thing, dude, I'd love to just catch up with you, and we'll do follow-up interviews anytime you have time.
This is great, Kim. It's an absolute honor of mine. Thank you so much for having me. And again, I hope everybody stays safe and has a great rest of the day as well, too.
Yes, guys, everyone go check out Matt. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording here, and Matt will say our goodbyes off air.